Britain, July 1938. Everything seemed normal, but everyone knew it wasn't. King George VI and Queen Elizabeth are warmly welcomed into Warrington in the UK, but fear can be felt, the fear of war. This footage was taken not long after Hitler conquered Austria and had his sights set on Czechoslovakia. Chamberlain attempted to appease him, but the fear prevailed. Britain has recalled all Royal Air Force leave handed out to its employees and has raised its air raid alarm system's sensitivity to ensure immediate detection. Preparations were underway, with air raid shelters being planted into the ground. The air raid shelters were created using reinforced steel, bolted together for maximum protection. They were planted deep into the ground, under buildings, or in remote areas to ensure people's safety. And gas masks being handed out to everyone to protect them from any potentially harmful gases which may be released. 38 million gas masks were produced before the war began in preparation.
This morning, the British ambassador in Berlin handed the German government a final note that they were prepared at once to withdraw their troops from Poland. A state of war, I have to tell you, would exist between us, that no such undertaking has been received, and that consequently this country is at war with Germany.
Training has gone into a full-fledged initiation. Soldiers have been recalled from all leaves and drills have begun all over the country.
For the second time in the lives of most of us, we are at war.
Everyone from ages 18 to 41 can be employed for the war at any time. By the end of the year, more than 1.5 million people were chosen for war. Not long after the soldiers began departing, massive protests began against the war, with a man named Mosley who claimed to be able to stop the war. Not long after the protests, one British bombing plane went missing and Chamberlain announced this to the nation.
I sought an audience of the King this evening, tendered to him my resignation, which His Majesty has been pleased to accept.
Winston Churchill was declared Prime Minister. In the weeks that followed, predicting a German invasion, Britain began strengthening itself. The lives of the citizens were completely disrupted. People were encouraged to cooperate by moving out of the army's way. Drills were common to help prepare for an emergency. Church bell ringing was banned. It was changed so that if there was an invasion of sorts, the church bells would alert the civilians. All children were evacuated to the countryside, while parents were forced to aid in the preparation in the main cities.
New war rules were initiated and were in full swing. It was a shoot-to-kill mission solely. All soldiers were to hide any food resources separated. All houses were to be equipped with a sufficient supply of grenades in an emergency situation. The Home Guard was created, its only purpose to defend from the invasion, and they had the strictest of rules, the largest of all being, whether a Nazi or an elephant, there would be blood on the bullet. It was evident that Germany was losing Britain in the war by day, but not by night. For a year, the British were made to endure the bombings of their towns and cities in the tragedy that was the Blitz. The Blitz began as bombs flew down from the German aircrafts above to the major British cities, blowing up everything in their path. The fire rained the night sky. People were forced into emergency cellars as sirens pierced through the air.
Life changed for most people that day. The rich people stayed the way they were, living the lives of kings, but the poor suffered. The poor were dirty, living off broken homes, and with hardly any food. These occurrences repeated day after day. Rescue operations commenced, with mostly finding dead bodies and throwing them into the ocean or burning them. Those that survived, as lucky as they were, forced into squalid hospitals, with hardly any chance of survival.
Many British ships sank in the following weeks, and many planes crashed. By 1942, America was in the war, shedding some light on the situation, but the major losses caused people to lose all hope. Parades were being held for all the lost soldiers, disrupting people's lives and keeping the situation in its terrible state. The war was hard itself, but even living in Britain was becoming just as hard. Rationing was initiated, for everything from food to clothing, to even petroleum for cars. Maximum per family was a clear order from the officials. The black market was hence thriving, with sources from everywhere. The well-connected were being fed better than normal, while others starved. Butter and sugar were the first thing to be rationed, followed by meat, tea, jam, biscuits, breakfast cereals, cheese, eggs, lard, milk, and canned dried fruit, and finally, fuel.
We shall go on to the end. We shall fight in France. We shall fight on the seas and oceans. We shall fight with growing confidence and growing strength in the air. We shall defend our island, whatever the cost may be. We shall fight on the beaches. We shall fight on the landing grounds. We shall fight in the fields and in the streets. We shall fight in the hills. We shall never surrender. Hitler knows that he will have to break us in this island or lose the war. If we can stand up to him, all Europe may be freed, and the life of the world may move forward into broad, sunlit upland. And now it has come to us to stand alone in the breach and face the worst that the tyrant's might and enmity can do. So bear ourselves that if the British Empire and its commonwealths last for 1,000 years, men will still say, this was their finest hour.